Of all the mysteries linked to UFOs, that of October the 27th, 1954 in Tuscany will remain forever engraved in history. For it was not less than tens of thousands of people who witnessed this unexplained phenomenon that day, and who were able to see with their own eyes and hear with their own ears. That day, in fact, more than 10,000 fans had come to the Stadio Artemio Franchi in order to attend the match of Fiorentina against its eternal rival Pistoiese. But soon the eyes of the spectators left the field to look up to the sky. And the referee had to stop the game, because even the players had stopped the ball and fixed their eyes towards the firmament. Above them, there were strange oblong-shaped flying objects which seemed to dance in the sky, projecting tiny silver glitter onto the stadium. These UFOs finally disappeared from the sky as suddenly and surreptitiously as they had appeared. But Tuscany continued to be seen of these celestial phenomena for several more weeks, and nearly 60 years after this match, the facts have still not been elucidated. They will probably never be. Today, we will tell you about 12 historical mysteries that have never been solved. Stories of ghost ships have always haunted the nightmares of sailors and other old sea dogs. What could be more frightening than to come across a rotten and threatening old ship on a moonless night in the middle of an ocean of darkness and peril? But if most of these stories are nothing more than fairy tales, there are some that have a terrible truth. The case of the MV Hoita is a flagrant example, since this cursed ship carries a dark secret in its wake. This merchant ship, flying the American flag, mysteriously disappeared in the South Pacific in October 1955. It was only 5 weeks later that it reappeared, but there was no trace of the 25 passengers and crew. Several theories were put forward as to their fate, but none of them could explain this mysterious disappearance in the middle of the sea, even though the ship had not sunk and was still floating when it was found. No, the Black Knight is not the same of yet another Marvel superhero, although we are tempted to believe it. Because behind this name, which is pompous to say the least, hides an unidentified celestial object which would be in a quasi-polar orbit around the Earth. According to ufologists and other UFO enthusiasts, this mysterious object is in fact a sort of artificial satellite of extraterrestrial origin. Yes, it would be the little green men who would have placed it there, most probably to spy on us. It is obviously difficult to believe this thesis, although the pictures taken of this object are totally bluffing, the kind you see in the movies of alien invasion. In all likelihood, what you see on these images is a simple thermal blanket, supposed to cover a part of the subtle endeavor and that a distracted astronaut had lost during a spacewalk. This last one was completely disintegrated a few hours later, while entering the Earth atmosphere, contrary to the legends of the Black Knight, which are still as alive. You might think that the Phaistos disc is the latest pop album, but it is not. Because in fact it is an archaeological artifact in the shape of a 16-centimeter diameter disc and whose two faces present completely indecipherable hieroglyphs. Dated from the end of the Minoan Bronze Age, this is to say nearly 2,000 years before Christ, this baked clay disc was discovered in 1908 by the Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier while he was conducting research on the archaeological site of the Minoan Palace of Phaistos in Crete. But the real enigma behind this curious artifact rests essentially on the 241 signs which are punched there by forming a spiral, leaving the outside towards the center. No archaeologist has ever been able to decipher these inscriptions because they do not correspond to any known language. The hypotheses and theories are therefore going well as to the meaning of this circular tablet, its origin, as well as its mysterious creators. Unexplained celestial phenomena mostly involve UFOs, but sometimes events can take on a literally astronomical aspect. The miracle of the sun, or dance of the sun, is a mysterious astral phenomenon whose main protagonist is our beautiful solar disk. The spectacular event took place on October the 13th, 1917, in Fatima, a small picturesque town in Portugal, in front of a gigantic crowd estimated at more than 70,000 people. All these people had gathered there because they had been told beforehand that there would be a miracle involving the sun, and the least we can say is that they were not lied to. Indeed, at noon exactly and in front of this immense crowd, the sun began to turn on itself like a silver disk, while projecting the colors of the rainbow. The solar star will continue this dance of dervish, turning more and more quickly on itself before melting on the earth as if it was going to hit it full force. The sun will then eventually return to its normal place in the sky, to the great relief of people who thought it was going to fall on their heads. Afterwards, the scientific community tried to explain this phenomenon, arguing that it was most probably only an optical illusion, or at most, a meteorological phenomenon, or even a collective hallucination. Mathematics is not too difficult, it's just logic and common sense applied to numbers. But if you think it's that simple, try to solve the unfathomable mystery of Beale's number. If you don't know what it is, it doesn't matter, because even the most eminent mathematicians and other experts in the field have never been able to decode it. Because the Beale number is a succession of undecodable numbers supposed to represent the location of a huge gold and silver treasure. The story of this strange number goes back to 1820 in Lynchburg, a small town in Virginia in the United States. Thomas J. Beale would have written this mathematical code in order to reveal the location of a prodigious booty in case he or one of his acolytes had misfortune. They had indeed stumbled upon a gold mine during a buffalo hunting expedition north of Santa Fe, and had managed to hide all the gold it contained, that is to say tons and tons of precious metal. But due to the extreme complication of the encryption used by Thomas, no one has ever been able to crack the secret. And this immense fortune remains until now buried somewhere, waiting for someone to find it. Would you believe for a moment that extraterrestrial could have taken the trouble to cross billions of light years in the void of space just to come and say hello? This hypothesis, which is laughable to say the least, is nevertheless taken seriously by NASA, which never tires of pointing its powerful antennas and other radio telescopes at the sky, waiting for a hypothetical signal sent by an extraterrestrial intelligence. So you can understand their enthusiasm when they were finally able to pick up a mysterious radio signal, probably coming from the constellation of Sagittarius, more precisely from a small star located at 1,801 light-years from the Earth. We might as well say that it is not really the next door, because even by traveling at the speed of light, we would need a little more than 18 centuries to get there. The WOW signal, as it was named by the astrophysicist who discovered it for the first time in 1977, will remain one of the greatest mysteries of our time. Because considering the sidereal distance that separates us from it and the time it takes to reach the Earth, it is not tomorrow the day that we will manage to engage in a telephone conversation with the little green men. Let's now move on to a sequence that doesn't lack tempo, and that's really the least we can say. In the year 1518, a terrible epidemic of plague fell without warning on the city of Strasbourg in Alsace. But it was not the bubonic plague that was in question, but rather a dancing plague. Yes, you heard me right. You don't have wax plugs in your ears, because all the unfortunate people who were affected by this pathology started to dance tirelessly and frantically until they literally died of exhaustion. This mysterious epidemic will have struck hundreds of people, leading them all to dance to an infernal rhythm, before finally disappearing as suddenly as it had appeared. Cryptos is a modern art sculpture which was created in 1990 by the artist Jim Sanborn and which is exposed in front of the headquarters of the CIA in Langley, Virginia. This granite work of art leaves no one indifferent, not for its intrinsic beauty, which by the way is almost nil, but rather for the mysterious inscriptions that appear on it. Indeed, Cryptos carries a cryptic message that no one has ever been able to decipher to this day, making this sculpture one of the greatest enigmas of our modern era. Nova N176, it's an Asian manuscript which could never be translated, and this for the good reason that the language and the writing used are completely unknown. No one can know what it is about, nor what subject it deals with, and even less its origin or the date of its writing. The enigma of the Codex Nova N176 thus risks to remain unsolvable, and the knowledge which it contains perhaps will thus remain forgotten, unless of course one finds another Rosetta Stone. Imagine that you can hear sounds that only you could detect. Wouldn't this make you mad as hell? Well, you should know that this unexplained phenomenon does exist, and it really has nothing to do with tinnitus. The people who have experienced this kind of sound are formal. The strange sound did not exist only in their head, and the numerous testimonies collected a little bit everywhere in the world come to corroborate this fact. So, where can the strange sound come from? The mystery remains complete. And, as always, on your favorite YouTube channel, we have saved the best for last, with the sequence that deals with one of the greatest mysteries of history with a capital H. This large block of stone that you see on your screens, which seems to be decorated with childish drawings by little kids, is perhaps the proof that it is not Christoph Columbus who discovered America. This erratic block of 40 tons was found in 1680 by an English settler lying in the bed of the Taunton River in Berkeley, a small town of Massachusetts in the United States. But it was not really the geological nature of the rock that interested this colonist, but the curious petroglyphs that were drawn on it, and which were totally undecipherable and unknown. Since then, there have been theories about the origin of these drawings. Some affirm indeed that they are only Amerindian petroglyphs, which would be the most plausible, but others do not hesitate to say that these drawings would be of Norse or even Phoenician origin, which would literally call into question the very history of the United States.